Shri Murugendra Shivayogi and the Occult powers. The Shivayogi's use of occult powers was all discreet and always in response to the claims of the divine scheme of things launched for the liberation of the souls in bondage. As instance of his using the powers is afforded by his reaching the aid of his saving hand to a drowning devotee fearlessly fighting the fury of formidable Krishna to be unfailing in his devotional duties of carrying her holy waters for the Shivayogi's puja. The bottom of the Darur was long in the devotional services of the Shiva Yogi, and it was only in the fitness of things divine that an occult experience was to be vouchsafed to him as an impetus for higher stages of spiritual advancement. Another instance of an occult experience vouchsafed by Shiva Yogi was in irresistible response to the piteous appeal of ShriMurugendra Swamiji of Dharwad to raise the dead. The Swamiji was on a return journey from Athani. The tragedy of a car accident that occurred during the course of his journey was the instantaneous death of one of the company that travelled in the attendance on the Swamiji, who was all tears and could not reconcile himself to the mishap uncountable in the context of his occurrence. The cause of a religion and spirituality was at stake. A severe setback in the spiritual advancement of the Swamiji threatened impeding. A spiritual, supreme natural agency was inevitable in satisfaction of the essential conditions of the game of divine life being played for the liberation of human souls. Still, another incident relates to the incident of Shiva Yogis giving darshana to a government officer of the Vaishnava faith seeking the bliss of his darshana. The Shiva Yogis was closeted with himself in a room and remained absorbed in his worship. The darshana sought by the officer threatened unqualifiingly impossible. There was no disturbing the Shiva Yogi in his puja. The Vaishnava, having the darshana of the Shiva Yogi, appeared plainly unthreatenably by his disciples. The officer was shown aside to stand and wait. The officer devotee did not deserve disappointment, not even a postponement of a Shiva Yogi's darshana, nor indeed the piercing pain of discomfort of the Shiva Yogi's disciples who seemed ill at ease to countenance a Vaishnava at the Shiva Yogi's puja time. So intense was his intent to have the darshana, and it was later learnt that he was directed by his titular deity in a dream of seek the spiritualizing darshana of the Shiva Yogi. The situation was grave and threatened to explode the formidable fortress of spiritual values. An indulgence in occult powers seemed imperative. The universality of spiritual experience was at stake. The Shiva Yogi rose from his worship and gave him his darshana. The Shiva Yogi served two quarters the Vaishnava devotee by giving him an incentive to more efficient efforts for still richer gains in spirituality, and his disciples who needed a lesson in the universal grasp of spiritual love. The few more instances of similar content illustrating his discreet and discriminate use of the occult powers beam bright in the life of the Shiva Yogi. There are also instances recorded of his occult powers having sub-observed the fulfillment of desires for material gains. Even here, the loving concern of the master to wean his devotees from material desires is indiscernible. Sri Athani Murugendra Shivayogi's disciple Sri Mrutyunjaya Swamiji of Dharwad. A master's grace is not a prize prompted by favoritism. It is not the price decided by personal prejudice, unaccountable in the context of existing facts. It is not a free gift bearing no relation to the merit of recipient. It is not a privilege granted by the caprice of kings and queens who bestow the withdraw powers. It is not a chance of fruit falling from a twig of a tree to serve an unseeking traveler. Nor is it the smile of fantastic fortune favoring mortals at random, nor again is it the favoring smile of satiated desires lasting no longer than the spell of the satiation. The path of Veershaivism. Veershaivism is one of the earliest religions practiced in India. It expounds a direct approach to the divinity in a man and an unfailing grasp of the absolute. It bases itself on the eightfold external Guru, Linga, Jangama, Vibhuti, Rudrakshi, Mantra, Padodaka and Prasada corresponding to the eightfold aspect of divinity of the limited self. Guru is the self-consciousness lying dormant within. Linga is the symbol of divinity within. Jangama is the inlying divinity to be realized. Vibhuti is suggestive of the great itself in action. The dynamics of this actualized knowledge leads to the release of a higher life, landing the aspirant at the foot of the sixfold height comprising of Bhaktasthala, Maheshasthala, Prasadisthala, Pranalingasthala, Sharanasthala and Aikyasthala to be ascended stage by stage and to culminate in the final fusing of the individual self with the absolute self. The unfoldment of the spirit as recognized and realized by the Veershaivism lays the way of accepting the illusion of the universe and transcending its limits. A denial of an illusion far from affecting the anticipation of the ensouled soul only serves to hold in abeyance the spirit's advancement and the consummation of its journey, which has to come early or late. The process of wearing out of the old sanskaras and steering clear of new samskaras contingent in the soul's struggle to be relieved of its load of past samskaras has to be gone through.